So for the past 6 months, I've been shooting with the Fujifilm GFX50R, and I'll be honest, this decision took me about a year or so to make, and over the course of that time, the price of the camera kept going up, but I wanted to wait for the GFX100RF to be released before really pulling the trigger on a medium format camera, because I wanted to see where Fujifilm was going with their medium format lineup. And when the GFX100RF finally dropped, it looked incredible, brand new design, amazing build quality, and the fixed lens that gave me some of that same freedom that I love about my X100VI. But ultimately, the f4 aperture was the determining factor and the thing that pushed me towards the 50R. And now, after finally spending some time with the 100RF over the past few weeks, I can look back and say to myself, did I make the right decision? The first thing that really struck me about the GFX100RF when I got it in hand is the build quality. It's premium through and through, it's solid body, modern ergonomics, and that fixed lens design that makes the whole system feel intentional, almost like a medium format version of my X100VI with just better build. And that similarity with the X100VI really made me feel comfortable with the GFX100RF right away. No decisions, no lens swapping, just one setup that's ready to go. And if you suffer from gear paralysis, like sometimes I do, a fixed lens system can really be liberating. It pushes you to focus more on shooting and less on which lens should I bring. But here's the thing, with that fixed f4 lens, I couldn't shake the feeling that Fuji played it too safe. Like, for medium format, depth of field is such a big part of the look. And while f4 is fine for landscapes and documentary style work, I wanted more flexibility for portrait work and low light, and that limitation is what stopped me from buying it in the first place. The GFX50R, by comparison, feels less refined in hand. It's a bit older, a bit clunkier, but it gives me options, and that's where the two cameras really start to really diverge. Now, the GFX100RF does have some tricks up its sleeve. It does have the aspect ratio dial on the top, which is, a fun touch. You can flip it between 4:3, 1:1, 655:24, which is that X-pan aspect ratio. It's a nice creative tool. But if I'm being honest, I could achieve the same thing, and I have achieved the same thing on my 50R by just programming a custom button. It's not as tactile, but it's, functional. And to be honest, once you've set your preferred aspect ratio, you're not really changing it every 5 minutes. So for me, it's more of a novelty than a necessity. Now, on the flip side, the GFX50R gives me that level of flexibility that the 100RF simply doesn't. I can mount my Medicon 65 f1.4 and get that dreamy, shallow, medium format look that I'm looking for. Or I can adapt vintage glass, which adds character and quirks to my images in a way that makes the process feel a bit more personal. And that's really what I wanted out of medium format, the freedom to experiment with different lenses, looks, and not just be tied to a single f4 optic. Now, when it comes to quality, there is no question that the GFX100RF delivers, and then some. The files are stunning, sharp, detailed, with a kind of tonality and rendering that makes medium format feel special. And that's one aspect of the medium format look that a lot of people don't talk about, the color tonality and how it transitions from dark to light and, color to color. It's another aspect of the medium format look that really deserves a lot of attention and that the 100RF does achieve. But the real headline here, in my opinion, is the 100 megapixels. That kind of resolution fundamentally changes your workflow. With 100 megapixel files, you can crop aggressively in post and still walk away with a higher resolution image that you can post on social or, share in a text. This camera is practically made for that social media trend of what I see versus the photo. You can take a wide shot, crop in 3-4 times and end up with a completely different composition that still looks sharp and professional. It's like having multiple lenses baked into one file. And that really kind of changes your perspective when you go out and shoot, knowing that you can kind of just fix it in post. In some people's opinion, that might make you more of a lazy shooter, and it might cheapen the process of photography, but it is kind of a cool benefit to have, and one that I didn't realize until I picked up this camera. For documentary shooters, travel photographers, and anyone who doesn't want to worry about missing a tighter composition in the moment, that flexibility is huge. The 100RF encourages you to frame a little loose, knowing that you can crop for days and still publish a 4K or even 8K image later. The GFX50R, on the other hand, is still no slouch. It may not hit the 100 megapixel resolution, but it still delivers that unmistakable medium format look, creamy transitions, depth, and tons of detail. And because I can pair it with faster glass or adapt lenses, I can often create a more dramatic look than the 100RF's fixed f4 will allow. So yeah, the 100RF has unmatched resolution and cropping flexibility, but for my shooting style, the 50R's versatility with lenses gives me a different kind of creative power. But one thing I'll give the GFX100RF is that it really did remind me of why I love my X106. You know, that fixed lens design, the simplicity, the way it strips away decision fatigue and just lets you focus on shooting, it's a powerful way to work. But the difference is that with the X106, the 23mm f2 lens feels like a perfect match for that system. On the GFX100RF, I don't feel the same synergy. The f4 lens feels like a compromise and not a choice. And another critical difference that I didn't realize on paper until I picked up the cameras and tried to shoot with them on day in and day out is that for an everyday carry, the X106 is a little bit better because it has a closer minimum focus distance. So even though it is a f2 on a crop sensor and it has a similar depth of field or shallow depth of field to the GFX100RF, maybe it's a little bit better, but being able to get closer to your subject and create that separation is huge for portraiture. And that's kind of where I noticed a roadblock with the GFX100RF in my everyday, walking around, taking family photos, and just using it as my everyday carry. So while the X106 benefits from that one lens, one vision philosophy, the 100RF feels a little boxed in my opinion. And the other side of the coin is the fact that you can add conversion lenses to the X106. So you can have a wide conversion or, telephoto. Changing that aspect ratio up is kind of a plus in those situations where you need maybe a tighter image for a portrait and you want to get that that depth of field and that compression, or if you want to have a wider lens for landscape, maybe 35 isn't wide enough, maybe you need that 28, and that's a flexibility that's available for X106 but not the GFX100RF, and they've said that they're not going to make any conversion lenses for this camera, so that's kind of a bummer. There's flexibility when it comes to the 50R, and there's flexibility even with the X106 and conversion lenses, but it doesn't exist for the 100RF. And we can't ignore price. The GFX100RF is positioned as a premium niche product. You're paying for that build quality, the unique form factor, the prestige of having the new medium format body. But when I sit down and think about what I actually want for medium format, the flexibility, that ability to push into shallow depth of field or experiment with adapted glass, it just doesn't line up with the cost in my opinion. The GFX50R, on the other hand, was a better buy for me. It's older, sure, but it gives me access to a whole GFX lens lineup, plus whatever third-party or vintage glass I want to adapt. For the money, it feels like I'm getting more creative value out of it. So to answer the question from the top of the video, did I make the right choice in buying the GFX50R over the 100RF? For me, the answer is yes, absolutely. The GFX100RF is a beautiful camera, don't get me wrong. It has amazing build quality, 100 megapixel files that you can crop into endlessly, and a fixed lens design that will absolutely appeal to some people, especially those who love the simplicity of the X100 cameras. But for me, medium format is about freedom. It's about experimenting with lenses, it's about adapting vintage glass, it's about chasing a unique look in different ways, and the fixed f4 lens on the 100RF just felt too limiting for what I wanted. So yes, I made the right decision. The GFX50R may not be as modern or as polished, but it gives me the creative flexibility that I was looking for, and that's what matters most. And actually, I do appreciate the fact that I got the opportunity to try out the 100RF and kind of kill that what if in my mind. Like, what if I would have got this versus that? So it was nice being able to test it out, side by side with my 50R, especially after experiencing, the 50R and adapting glass and getting that medium format look. I was able to really determine if I made the right decision. Do any of you out there own the GFX100RF, or is there anything about this camera, any hidden tricks or features or a secret sauce that I'm missing? Let me know down below in the comments. Let's keep this, dialogue going. I think it is really dope that, Fujifilm is pushing these boundaries and giving us different options. Before this, I'd never seen a fixed lens digital medium format camera. But yeah, it's been a pleasure as usual. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, stay fresh. Peace.